Hi guys, welcome back to Too Cool for Middle School. I have been meaning to make this video all year long and I need to tell you, but it's such a simple idea that I'm afraid that everyone has already thought of this and that I'm the last person on the train and you're all gonna be like, duh. But it's crazy because this has seriously helped so much with my organization this year. It's helped to keep me sane. It's helped my students know what's going on. It's helped with my communication. It's just so helpful, but so simple. This is one of those reasons why I follow a lot of elementary teacher accounts, even though like their content often doesn't apply to me. Some of their organizational ideas are really good, and they have to be a little bit more intentional about organization and directions and planning just because their students are a little bit less self-sufficient. But then sometimes as like middle or high school teachers, we get kind of lazy with that kind of stuff, but then we get frustrated and we realize we could have just been doing some simple things to keep everybody on track. Okay, so this is the simplest change that I made this year to my teaching. I created a Google Slides presentation for every day of the week, and I write on it our classwork and homework. It's so simple, but it has been so useful. So it's not like I didn't do this before, it's just that I did it in a way less efficient way. So for example, 2 years ago, I taught 3 different preps. I think it was 8th grade English, 6th grade English, and 6th grade history. So I had one big, huge whiteboard and I divided it up into 3 sections. And then I cut that section in half, like horizontally. So on the top of those 3 sections, I would write the like to-do list for the day, and then on the bottom I would write the homework. And our students do have like agendas that they're supposed to be writing in, particularly the kids who are in Avid. They're supposed to come in and look for that and write it down every day. And ours don't have to be like incredibly thorough. I have worked in schools where you need to write an objective in like a certain like kind of I can statement type of a thing and all of those kinds of things, but it just, for the kids, it gets kind of cluttered. And I started off doing it that way just because I was used to doing it that way from my old schools. But the kids sometimes were just like confused about what they were supposed to write down. And a lot of times the kids who need to write those things down the most have a little bit of trouble distinguishing what information is important and what is not. So they'd be looking at the board and like writing down the objective, which they didn't really need to write down, or like a standard, which they really don't need to write down. Like they just needed to put in their little tiny square on their agenda just what the homework was. And maybe what we did in class, just because sometimes their parents like look at their agenda to see what was going on. But honestly, they wouldn't always copy it down right, or they wouldn't always remember to do it. And it was just definitely not a foolproof system. So then I would have to remember every day to take everything that I had written on all 3 of those boards and then get out my Chromebook and type them into Google Classroom and type up the things that we did and the homework. But I wouldn't always remember. It would get kind of lost in the feed of Google Classroom, and it wasn't useful. For me, it was very time consuming. For parents, they were always just kind of like, okay, thanks, I still don't know what's going on. And for the students, it was kind of a mess too. So I saw on Instagram that a lot of elementary teachers just have like a running slides presentation throughout their whole day to keep students like focused and really to keep them focused as the teacher and like transition them into each activity. And so for me, I only have my students, you know, for like 45 minutes, and we only do 2 to 3 things, you know, per day. Maybe we like read something and then have an activity with it and view a video or something. Like, I just don't have a ton of time. So there's not a lot that I have to fit on a to-do slide. And I don't assign a ton of homework, but the confusing thing is that I don't have like a really consistent homework policy either. It's not like, okay, you have to do this every single night for homework. It's like, okay, well today you have it, but tomorrow you don't. And Wednesday, it's just like if you didn't finish this thing. So for kids who have trouble following that, they really need it written down. And when parents would contact me about like, okay, so when do they have homework and when do they not? It was just kind of getting hard to explain and communicate. So I just needed a better way to convey that information. So all I did, I'm telling you, I feel so dumb that I didn't do this before. but I just have a slide for each day. So it has the day of the week on it. It has the date. It has the to-do list, because I really do like to have just a list of the things that we are going to do that day for a couple of reasons. A, because you always have a couple of kids per period that walk in, and the second they walk in, they're like, what are we doing today? And I think it's more just like a way of making conversation. But honestly, it stresses me out a little bit to hear that every single hour for 7 times a day from several different kids. It's just not my favorite question to get over and over and over. And so now I can just point to the slide on the board. I'm like, okay, well, it's right there. And I mean, I did that with my whiteboard before, but it's just that it wasn't like right up prominently in front of the room. So this is just easier to point to. And I teach 2 different classes now. I have 8th grade English and 6th grade history. And so in between classes, we've got 4 minutes in between classes, and we're on a rotating schedule. So the class periods are different every single day. So I do have to like switch the slides every couple of periods, but that's just like a good little reset for me too. So I'm like, okay, let me put up the history slides now, because I sort of forget what we were doing, because I was getting really into this English lesson, and now I need a little reminder, what are we doing again? So it's nice to just put that up there. And there are always things that I forget to do in class, like if it's return graded work or hand out some kind of a permission slip or whatever. There's always just like one period where I will forget to do that. But if I have it on the slides, then I look at the slides and I remember. And I really like to have a beginning of class thing to help us reset. So if you have, seen any of my vlogs or watched anything in my class, we always do a little Lin-Manuel Miranda tweet thing, our good morning, eyes up, hearts up, mind sharp, compassion on full blast, take a sip of coffee, and then we get moving. So that takes like 30 seconds, if that, but that kind of like ends the side conversations, gets everyone paying attention, and we're ready to go. And then I go over what is on the board. And there are a lot of kids who they just really want to know right now at the beginning of class, what is my homework going to be? And they have their agenda out and they want to write it down now. So that information is up there. It will say either like continue reading Act 3 in Anne Frank, or finish your notes on the Qin Dynasty, or a lot of times on Friday it says nothing, have a good weekend. So it's just much more clear. Like I'm realizing how unclear I was before, and how difficult it probably was for students to not have just one place where they could go to see if they have homework, because I use a lot of different like platforms. So I have Google Classroom. Let me know in the comments down below if you also use Google Classroom. They have upped their game because I think they have so much more competition now. So they've really improved the platform quite a bit, and I'm glad for that. We do grades on PowerSchool. I also use Newsela a lot, and I can assign things there. I use vocabulary a lot. I can assign things there. I use Common Lit. We have our textbooks, but I didn't have one place where I was saying, okay, this is the list of things that you have to do, and go to these websites if the assignment was on those sites. And we have one-to-one Chromebooks also, so I don't always have like a worksheet or whatever. So just, as we're transitioning into this new type of education system where so much is online and there's less organization on paper or in agendas or planners or whatever, you just have to find a way to balance it. So this is my way. And what I do is I create this slides presentation, and then last semester, actually, I had just I was adding a slide underneath it for each new day, but my students asked if I could flip it and put the newest slide at the top. So I have made that change this year, or this semester. And also last semester, they were like all the same color, just because I made the English ones were purple or something and the history ones were pink or whatever. So that helped me keep track of things, but for them, they're just seeing one, and it was a little bit tough to distinguish between which day you were looking at. So anyway, I decided to make the headings different colors now so they can see an entire week as they're scrolling through. And that's all I list there, is the classwork that we're doing today and the homework that we're doing today. And obviously there's more to my lesson, but then they can go to Google Classroom or whatever other site we're using to find the rest of it. But they needed a home base. So I share that Google Slides presentation with all of my students, and it's a view-only file. They are not able to edit it because that would be a nightmare. Only I can edit it. And I also have it listed in my resources section of Google Classroom. So you can create like different folders. And so I have a resources folder, and that's the first thing in there. And I make my students open it and save it to their Google Drive so that they are able to check it. And I know that a lot of this really only works for like middle or high school students where they're pretty proficient with technology, but maybe if you have elementary school and you just have a few students, you know, I consider 30 a few because I have like 200, maybe you can make sure that like parents are really diligent about checking this, or just spend time teaching your students to open it. And so I tell my parents as well where this is located so that they are able to open it. They can go into their students' Google Classroom. They have less like visibility than the students have, but also if they, you know, are the type of parent that email you a lot, then you can just share it directly with them through email. I think for me, I have to change some of the settings because it's only viewable at first by people like within our school network and like that email domain. So you do have to check with Google Slides like your share settings, and that's just a skill that all of us learn as we share different documents and stuff, because you always make a mistake at first and people aren't able to edit it, or they are able to edit it and you didn't want them to, so you just kind of have to practice with those things. But the other great thing about it is that since it is there and available to all of my students, Jensen's so loud. When they come back from being sick or they're out for some reason and they ask me what we did, I'm like, you have the slides, go look at the slides. The only thing is that when they're like, well, I'm gonna be out tomorrow, what are we doing tomorrow? I don't put slides in for the future just because that's too confusing. Like I have my lesson plans written out, so I know what I'm doing usually. So that's where the system breaks down a little bit. I don't give them like future slides, but you know, you can just have that conversation with kids who are going to be out in the future and they're asking for their work. The other thing that I like about having it in Google Slides is that, let's say I want them to read a particular article on Newsella. I can highlight those words on the slide and add a link to it, to that story on Newsella. So you can add links within these slides so that students just go straight there, and then like they have no excuse to not be able to find whatever resource they're looking for. And then I always put those kinds of links and stuff on Google Classroom. Now that Google Classroom has changed so much, I kind of want to make a video about that as well because I love it. They've done so much good stuff and it's so helpful to organize things now. So maybe we'll do a video about that too. But anyways, these daily classwork and homework slides have just been so stinking helpful. Helpful for me, helpful for students, helpful for parents. And it's so simple. They're so easy to do. So you can very easily make your own slides on Google Slides. And there are like different templates and stuff that they have. I am picky and I really like my clip art. I really like my fonts. My slides like match the color scheme of my classroom because I'm insane. You do not have to do this. Most of my students probably do not care. But for me, anytime I have like a tedious task, if it's pretty, then I don't mind doing it as much. Like good design to me covers a multitude of sins. So I went into PowerPoint and used my own, you know, fonts that I've like purchased, which is totally unnecessary. I just like them. I want my particular fonts that are not Google fonts or even like the extended Google fonts. I want my own, and I get them on like Teachers Pay Teachers or Etsy or whatever. So I have those fonts on PowerPoint, and then I purchase clip art usually on like Etsy or whatever, and I have my little combinations that I like. So I put those together in a PowerPoint presentation and then I save it as a JPEG. So if you are fairly tech savvy, like you could do this yourself, and then you import those JPEGs into Google Slides, and then you just make Google Slides out of that. And they're not editable anymore. You can only put text over them, but that's what I want. I didn't want to have to keep like recreating slides every day. So I just duplicate them. Like I have a Monday slide, and then when it is Monday again, I just duplicate that slide and take off last week's text and put in a new to-do list and new homework and a new date and all of that. So I like to do that for myself just because I think it's fun. But if you can't be bothered to put the time in to do that, I don't blame you at all. So I did make these slides available on Teachers Pay Teachers in a couple of different like styles. They're all the same basic format. It's just your classwork and homework and the date, and like there's a space where you can put like the unit title, and you can really do whatever you want with it. You can add your objective to it, you can add standards, but for the most part the slides are pretty just like crisp and clean so that you just add whatever you want. And so then of course I have to use Google Fonts to fill in all of the information, which is fine. I'm not that much of a brat. I just wanted my headers and stuff to be like really cute. So right now I just have these in my store as like a JPEG image that you can put into Google Slides. I think I'm gonna go in there and add to all of the products like just a link to a Google Slide, just so that, you know, you don't have to go through the effort of like putting an image into a Google Slide. But either way, you would only do that process once, and then you can just like keep recycling the same slides, or you can make them yourself and make it look however you want. It's just been the weirdest, simplest, best change that I made to my classroom that I didn't think would be such a game changer, but it totally is. I love that it's digital, I love that it's shareable, I love that I can put links there, and I love that it's just consistent and my students know when they walk in that they're gonna see all of the information on the board, and that if they're absent, they know where to find it. Just in general with teaching, it's great to find routines like that. You want to say hi?
No!
Is it time for a nap? What do you want? No, you can't get on my desk. Okay, anyway. Okay, so I think we are done with this video, according to Jensen. So I will leave links down below. Just wanted to tell you about this game changer in my classroom. Let me know if you do something similar. Oh my goodness. All right, guys. See you next time. Bye.